The morning she threw me out was the morning everything changed. Not because of what she did, because of what showed up right after she did it. And she never saw it coming. The first suitcase hit the driveway at 9:47 in the morning. Marcus watched it bounce off the cracked concrete and split open at the seam. His shirt spilled across the ground like scattered leaves. He had packed that bag himself the night before, quietly, methodically, because he felt the moment approaching the way a man feels a storm before the sky changes color. Diane stood on the porch with her arms folded and her jaw set tight. She was a tall black woman with sharp eyes and a voice that could carry 3 houses down without effort. She had used that voice to build her career. Now she was using it to dismantle her marriage. She said his name once, flatly, like a verdict. Then she said the rest. She said he was a burden. She said she had carried him long enough. She said she was tired of explaining to her colleagues why her husband drove a dented pickup truck and wore boots that needed resoling. She said she was tired of the mystery. She said she deserved better than a man who could not even name what he did for a living without pausing first. Marcus stood at the bottom of the porch steps in dark jeans and a plain white t-shirt. His hands were relaxed at his sides. He did not raise his voice. He did not reach for the suitcase. He did not beg. He simply looked at her the way a man looks at something he already understands but cannot yet explain. Neighbors began appearing without trying to appear. The woman 2 doors down suddenly needed to check her mailbox. The retired man across the street found a reason to stand on his porch. A teenager on a bicycle slowed to a roll. Humiliation draws a crowd faster than celebration ever does. Diane stepped down from the porch and kicked the open suitcase further across the driveway. The sound was sharp and unnecessary. She told him to take his things and his silence and his secrets and go find someone else to confuse. She said she was done pretending he was worth waiting on. Marcus bent down slowly and picked up a photograph that had slid out from the bag. It was from their 3rd year together, before the trips he never fully explained, before the calls he took in the other room, before she started comparing him to the men in her professional circle who wore tailored suits and posted photos from private airport lounges. He looked at the photograph for one quiet moment. Then he placed it carefully back inside the bag. He did not say a word. His silence was not weakness. It was a kind of stillness that belongs to a man who knows exactly what is about to happen next. Diane laughed, not warmly, not nervously, loudly. She told the neighbors who were pretending not to watch that this was the man she had sacrificed 3 years for. She gestured toward him like he was evidence of something. She said she had worked herself to the bone while he disappeared on vague business and came home saying nothing. She said she would not spend another year of her life on a man who had nothing to show. The word nothing echoed off the houses. It settled into the driveway. It hung there. Then the hum started. It came from the far end of the street, low, organized, the kind of sound that does not announce itself but cannot be ignored. Diane stopped mid-sentence. The neighbor with the mailbox turned her head. The man on the porch straightened up. The teenager on the bicycle stopped pedaling entirely. 10 black SUVs turned onto the street in perfect single formation. Their hoods caught the morning sun like polished armor. They moved slowly, deliberately, without hesitation, not rushing, not performing, just arriving with the particular confidence of things that do not need to explain themselves. Diane's brow furrowed. She looked at Marcus, then back at the convoy, then at Marcus again, her arms unfolded slowly. The SUVs lined the curb in front of the house one by one. Engines idled low. No doors opened yet. The street fell into a silence so complete that the sound of the suitcase zipper earlier seemed like a distant memory. Then the first door opened. A black man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit stepped out. Broad shoulders, white gloves, shoes that had never touched anything but clean floors. He scanned the driveway with calm, professional eyes. His gaze found Marcus in 2 seconds and did not waver. He walked forward with purpose, past the scattered clothes, past the tipped box of personal files, past Diane, straight to Marcus. He stopped and lowered his head in a single, clean gesture of respect. He said, "Sir," just that. The word landed on the street like a stone dropped in still water. Rings spread outward in every direction. Diane's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The suited man spoke again, evenly. He said the morning schedule required immediate departure. The board had confirmed the agenda. He gestured gently toward the lead SUV. Other doors opened. Men and women in matching tailored suits stepped out in pairs. One moved directly to the scattered clothing on the driveway and began folding each item carefully before placing it into a protective garment bag. Another gathered the files from the tipped box as if handling legal documents. A third woman in heels walked directly to the photograph. Marcus had set back in the bag, slid it into a protective sleeve, and secured it with the precision of someone who had been trained to handle things that matter. They moved like a team that had rehearsed this, because they had. Diane stepped backward. Her heel caught the edge of the porch step. She grabbed the railing. Her eyes moved rapidly from the suited team to Marcus, to the convoy, to the neighbors, who were no longer pretending to do anything but watch. Her voice came out differently than it had been coming out all morning. Smaller. She asked what was happening. She asked who these people were. She asked why they were calling him sir. Marcus turned to look at her, not with anger, not with triumph, with the particular clarity of a man who no longer needs to explain himself but chooses to do so anyway, one final time. He told her that the question she should have been asking was not who they were, it was who he was. And she never asked that. Not once in 3 years. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. The suited man returned to Marcus's side with a tablet in both hands. On the screen was a live conference call. A boardroom visible in high definition. 20 executives seated around a table that stretched the width of the frame, all waiting, all watching the driveway. A corporate logo filled the screen behind them, large and unmistakable. The logo of a technology and infrastructure conglomerate that appeared on financial news broadcasts and quarterly earnings reports worldwide. One of the neighbors said the name out loud. He hadn't meant to. It came out as a whisper with too much weight to stay quiet. Diane's eyes locked onto the screen. Her lips moved but produced nothing audible. The suited man spoke calmly. He said the shareholders were awaiting confirmation of arrival. He said the acquisition vote was in 11 minutes. He said the board needed the chairman present. The word chairman found every corner of that driveway and stayed there. Diane's knees shifted. Her hand tightened on the railing. The laughter she had performed 20 minutes ago no longer existed anywhere in her face. What replaced it was something harder to watch. The expression of someone realizing in real time that the story they told themselves about another person was never true. She had seen poverty where there was patience. She had seen failure where there was discretion. She had seen weakness where there was restraint. And now she was standing on a porch holding the railing while 10 black SUVs and 20 suited professionals gathered her husband's belongings with more care than she had thrown them. She said his name, softly this time, Marcus. She said she did not know. She said she was sorry. She said she did not mean it. She said she had been under pressure from friends, from comparisons, from the visible success she watched on other people's social media every morning and could not locate in her own life. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. He told her the issue was never that she did not know. The issue was how she treated him when she believed he had nothing. He told her that a person's character lives in those moments. Not the easy ones. The ones like this. Her shoulders dropped completely. The suited man touched his earpiece and spoke quietly. Then he turned to Marcus. He said the rear vehicle was loaded and ready. He said the pilot was standing by at the private terminal. He said they needed to move. Marcus picked up his jacket from the garment bag the team had prepared. He put it on calmly. The fit was different from the plain white T-shirt. The jacket had the structure of something expensive and understated. He looked the same and completely different simultaneously. He walked toward the lead SUV. The neighbors parted on both sides of the driveway without being asked. The teenager on the bicycle had set the bike down on the grass and was standing beside it. The woman with the mailbox had not moved in 4 minutes. Diane came down from the porch. She crossed the driveway in 3 quick steps and stopped just behind him. She touched his sleeve with 2 fingers. Her voice was barely voice at all. She asked if there was any chance. Any chance at all? He stopped. He did not turn immediately. When he did, his face carried no cruelty, no satisfaction, no performance. Just truth. He told her that the hardest part was not leaving. The hardest part was knowing she never tried to see him when it cost her nothing to look. The rear door of the lead SUV was held open. The interior showed leather seating, ambient lighting, a privacy partition, and a world that bore no resemblance to the cracked driveway they were standing in. Marcus stepped inside. The door closed with the soft precision of something well-engineered. The convoy began moving in unison, slow and certain, away from the curb, down the street, past the neighbors, past the bicycles and the mailboxes and the quiet houses that would not stop talking about this morning for months. Diane stood at the edge of the driveway and watched until the last SUV turned the corner and disappeared. The street was silent in a way it had not been silent before. Not peaceful, emptied. Her phone vibrated. Then again, then again. News alerts, financial headlines, her sister, her mother, her colleague from work who had sent a screenshot from a Business Wire report. The headline read, Marcus J. Ellison, chairman of Ellison Global Technologies, finalizes historic multi-continent acquisition. The photo beneath it showed him at a podium 6 months prior, composed, precise, unrecognizable to no one who had actually looked. She sat down on the porch step, the same step she had stood on an hour ago when she believed she was the one with everything. The concrete was cool through her clothes. She looked at the driveway, still marked where the suitcase had landed. Inside the SUV, Marcus sat quietly as the city unfolded outside the tinted windows. The tablet screen showed the boardroom settling into session. Executives shuffled papers. An assistant confirmed the agenda. The acquisition vote loaded onto the main display. Billions of dollars in infrastructure assets, technology licenses, and cross-border supply chains awaited one word. The senior board member, a black woman in her 60s named Dr. Adaze Okonkwo, leaned forward. She had built 3 companies before joining Ellison Global. She had no interest in sentiment. She looked directly into the camera and asked if he was ready to proceed. Marcus nodded once. The vote moved through the board in sequence. Each voice confirmed. The final confirmation belonged to Marcus. He gave it without drama. The word approved. Just that. The room exhaled. Markets would open differently tomorrow. Supply chains would shift. Thousands of jobs across 4 continents would become more secure. All from one quiet word spoken in the back seat of a moving vehicle. The suited man in the front seat passed a printed agenda over the partition. 3 countries in the next 5 days. 2 government meetings, 1 press summit. Marcus reviewed it in silence. His phone held 47 unread messages. He did not open a single one. 3 weeks passed, then 6. Then the season changed. Diane enrolled in a leadership coaching program run by a nonprofit in the city, not because anyone suggested it, because she sat with herself long enough to understand what she had done and where it came from. She examined the comparison that had quietly poisoned her, the co-workers and their loud husbands and their visible lives. The creeping belief that a man who did not perform success publicly was a man who had none. She examined the shame she felt when her friends asked about Marcus at dinners and she could not answer cleanly. She examined the way she had chosen public humiliation as a release valve for private insecurity. None of it was comfortable to look at. She looked at it anyway. The divorce was handled cleanly, no courtroom drama, no leaked statements, no attempt to reshape the narrative publicly. Attorneys on both sides moved with the efficiency of people who understood that speed is mercy in these situations. The paperwork was filed quietly. The settlement was fair, not generous as punishment, not punitive as revenge, just fair. Marcus had never been a man who used money as a weapon, and he saw no reason to start. Her father called once. Marcus answered. The conversation was short and honest. Her father admitted he had laughed in that driveway. He admitted he had told his daughter she was right to want more visibility from a husband. He admitted he had never asked his son-in-law a single serious question in 3 years of family dinners. He apologized without conditions. Marcus accepted it without warmth, but without coldness either. Just acknowledgement. The call ended with mutual silence that felt like mutual understanding. She found work she was proud of. A mentorship initiative for young black women entering corporate spaces, teaching them to negotiate worth and resist the pull of performing status for external validation. She became good at it quickly, because she understood the trap from the inside. 8 months after the driveway, a letter arrived from Ellison Global's philanthropic division, a funding grant, enough to expand the mentorship program into 3 additional cities, hire a full staff, and build a dedicated resource center. The letter was formal and professional and came through proper channels. Marcus's name did not appear on it. His foundation's name did. She held the letter for a long time before setting it down. She understood that it was not reconciliation. It was not a message. It was not a door reopened. It was something quieter and more important than any of those things. It was evidence that a man she had called nothing had chosen, without announcement, to invest in the work she was building. Not to be seen doing it, just to do it. She wrote a formal letter of acknowledgment to the foundation, professional, grateful, brief. She did not ask for anything else. The mentorship program grew rapidly. Within a year, it had placed over 200 young black women into corporate roles, legal partnerships, and entrepreneurial tracks. Diane spoke at a regional conference and did not mention the driveway. She spoke about identity and comparison and the quiet violence of measuring human worth by what can be displayed. The audience gave her a standing ovation. She thanked them simply and walked off stage. Somewhere across the city, in a glass tower that faced the skyline, a man in a plain black jacket stood at a floor-to-ceiling window and looked out at a world that was still moving, still building, still becoming. His phone sat face down on the desk behind him. The convoy was in the garage below. The next meeting was in 40 minutes. He thought briefly about the driveway, about the photograph, about the way the morning sun had looked on the cracked concrete when the first suitcase landed. He thought about the look on her face when the first door of the lead SUV opened. He thought about what it meant that the convoy had been scheduled 3 weeks before the argument, and the universe had simply chosen dramatic timing. He did not carry bitterness. He carried it like a clean scar proof of impact, evidence of survival, a reminder of what holds when pressure comes. Power does not need an audience. Dignity does not require a witness. The man they called nothing had never needed to be watched to know who he was. The convoy waited below. The world moved. So did he, quiet, steady, unshaken. Because the strongest thing anyone owns is the self they build unseen, not for applause, not for comparison. The one that holds shape under pressure, moves without noise, and remains long after engines fade.